Welcome to the MMHP in the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history, recorded live from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located inside the Bay County Historical Museum,
from the city by the bay,
featuring Dr. J, Fred Reif, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker. Brought to you by the 989 Podcast Network and the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located at the Bay County Historical Society Museum at 321 Washington Avenue, Bay City, Michigan.
And we're back here at the MMHP in the 989 with Mr. Greg Nagy, part 2. As you know from the first one, he's been a very busy man. The Real You is out now. He's been on the road. We're hoping to get this out in time for him to help promote his summer. He's also going to be backing Larry McCray for local Larry McCray shows. And Greg, as you know, plays with so many Michigan musicians. We were blessed to have so much time with him and have him tell us his story. And hats off to him for being a veteran too. And once again, if you haven't heard part 1, you got to go back and listen, because part 2 just takes us into the future of what he has planned. Sit back and enjoy. Thank you all for listening. MMHP in the 989. Here we go. I noticed too that the new record, particularly, I hear a lot of going back to maybe Showdown. You got a lot of Robert Cray.
I love me some Robert Cray.
The way your voice ends lines and the way you hit notes, and then the process, you the mix. I'm like, man, you even had you got the reverb right. Everything's right.
Oh,
you know?
wow, okay.
It's just a lot of.
I don't know.
You touch on it.
No, I take it as a beautiful compliment. None of it was deliberate, although there's a funny side story on that. My third album was called Stranded, and that song was given to me by a gentleman by the name of Jeff Paris, and Jeff Paris was a writer for Polydor A&M for 23 years, and Jeff started off with Bill Withers when Jeff was super young, but he ended up writing for everybody. Oh my gosh, there was a hair metal band called Mr. Big in the 90s. It was Rod Stewart, Toto, Luther Vandross, blah, blah, blah. Long list, because he was a staff writer. And eventually he got with Keb Mo, and Keb Mo was getting big. So he was Keb Mo's music director. That was when Keb was really, breaking out pretty big, 2005 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I met Jeff through the Keb Mo thing. Jim and I were backstage at a Keb Mo thing, and I hit it off with Jeff, and so Jeff sends me Stranded right when I'm going through my divorce about 10 years ago. He goes, I think this song would fit you, you loser. No. So, and then he says, we sent 2 to Cray. This is the reject. So Stranded is a Robert Cray reject.
Oh, jeez.
So being told that, if you go listen to Stranded now, which is on Spotify, I'm being a bit of a smart Alec. At the outro, I throw a couple Crayisms on guitar, just the best with it. Got a lot of airplay on XM radio too, by the way. Stranded did. Okay. And people were saying that all the time. Oh, he kind of sounds a little bit like Cray. Now Cray's got a much higher range than I do. Yeah. I mean, you can sing much higher than I can, but I deliberately tongue-in-cheeked a couple Crayisms toward the outro, where you pick back here by the bridge and you got the treble pick.
Right on.
I said, okay, well, take that, Robert. Yeah. And it was, and the song was number 2 on the Roots Music Report for 2015. And it was number 1 for 6 months. Okay. And it was on, and Downbeat Magazine, gave the album 4 stars. So I just kind of like, hey, Robert. Thanks. So,
yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah. No, I only do that not to name drop or anything, but because you mentioned it, it's kind of funny. But it's never been like, it's Robert Cray, and then there's the Boz Skaggs thing that people throw at me every once in a while. And I've never actually ever sat down and tried to, mimic or. I think the Boz Skaggs thing is the curse of our Michigan nasal tone that we all have when we talk.
You got a nice glassy tone, though, too. And I especially heard it advance even more, and like you've been singing more as the years go on, and it's like, holy crap. I went back and started listening to your earlier stuff, and I'm like, man, it's just every record comes with a little more wholesome.
It's the solo acoustic gigs that I've been doing. Yeah. and I'm resting my voice on Larry's gigs because he's doing all the singing. So,
Right.
But it's the solo acoustic gigs. You know, you can really hear your vocal placement so much better when you're in a band and you don't hear yourself very well. It's easy to develop bad habits and not have. And Jeff was talking to me about that. He said one of the techniques that he told me about earlier on. He said, especially if you're reaching for a money note and whether you're going, technically up into your head voice or whatever. He said if you can always constantly remind yourself to act like you're yawning when you're doing it, it leaves the tone richer and more open. Whereas in the past, I think I would get a little bit anxious moving around, and it would clamp down a little bit. And a lot of singers do clamp down.
Yeah.
You hear it in their voice, but you can definitely. And then the other thing about Michiganders is we also speak from the top of our chest rather than our diaphragms. In the moment, so a lot of times if I'm going to do vocals, I'll just spend the day. I'm more down here. It's just air's coming from, it's just it's a warmer.
Yeah.
Take a little bit of the zing out of the facial mask. But
Where did you record the new album?
a place called Sound Shop Studio in Macomb, outside of Detroit. Josh Ford owns it. He also goes by the name Motorcity Josh. He's a great musician. He's been around a long time, and we've been talking for years. He's been asking, "Hey man, come make a record with me." And I was like, I don't know. And finally he said, "I've got my guys, his bass player, his drummer, his keyboard player, and they're all very comfortable here, and they'll do whatever you ask them to do." And I said, so like one-stop shopping. Instead of me trying to round up the guys that I normally play with, it was like these guys play a lot together. They listen to each other. It's kind of like having the Muscle Shoals. If you guys remember the Muscle Shoals story, how they all sat in a circle and they all knew each other and they could go. So it's a really great opportunity if you don't have a whole lot of time to play songs out on the road for a while or with a band. In my case, I have Rolodex of musicians. I'll have 2 or 3 different rhythm sections. If I'm doing big festivals, I obviously try to get the guys that are on the record. But how it is.
Yeah.
When you're just playing in the trenches. But those guys were just John Barron on bass. He played with Odetta Harris and Betty Levette. Todd Glass on drums. He, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. I know you know this guy. So I know you guys would know this guy.
Brett Lucas.
No, he's a famous.
I jammed with Todd Glass, so he was.
No, he's Todd, a rockabilly guy, Robert something.
Robert Gordon.
Yes. Todd Glass toured with Robert Gordon for years. And then Dale Gryza, he just works with everybody. He could work with a Broadway show tune singer on piano, or a jazz singer, or a blues singer. He plays with Bobby Murray a lot. So to me, it was like, wow, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. That's cool. Motorcity Josh, back in the 90s, he sent me all his CDs to do reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd send me piles of them.
Yeah.
He was cool. I always wondered what he'd been up to.
Yeah. He's now
he has a studio.
It's a beautiful studio. It's a world-class studio. Okay. And then he also has a sound, Motor City Sound. He does live sound reinforcement. So a lot of those, like Fridays and those outdoor things in Detroit, like Auburn Hills and stuff. Those are his stages and his PA. And in fact, he hired me to help him a couple of weeks ago. He goes, "Hey, you want to run sound with me at a gig?" I'm like, "Where's it at?" Flint Kersley High School. I went to Flint Kersley High School. I know where that is. So I go over there, and it's this Motown review, and it's like these 4 singers. And I'm going to just horribly drop the ball on this one, but you know how all these Motown bands have their original singers, and then the next tier, and then the next tier.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these guys were the once removed guys, but they were still the Dramatics. It was Dramatics, Temptations, but you'll appreciate this: the one original guy, and you're thinking there's no way this is true, right? Who remembers the Edsels? What was their hit?
Ram-a-Lam-a Ding Dong?
Yeah, that guy. He was there. He was singing and dancing. He was like early 80s, and he was a bass. He was this little guy.
Oh my God.
He was so much fun. We was hanging out with him in the green room a little bit once we were set up. It was 4 guys, and they were just. It was one of those Motown reviews where they just go for bam, 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 song, just tons of all these hits.
But they didn't do Ram-a-Lam-a Ding Dong.
No, I was pretty upset with that.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite doo-wop songs.
No, that wouldn't be Motown though. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he sent me a friend request on Facebook. I should probably look and see what his name. But sorry.
Did you say the Dramatics were there?
one of the singers from the
Because the
Dramatics.
lead singer is from Saginaw, L.J. Reynolds.
So L.J. Reynolds. So here's my other connection to that. Simeo overall helped me with the vocals. Helped me, record the vocals because I record vocals at my house mostly, and then send them down to Josh. But on the Real You, because it's a little bit more of an R&B-ish kind of, it's not exactly in my wheelhouse immediately, and it's an original too, so I'm still trying to massage the melody in my head. I co-wrote that song with Jeff Paris, in fact, who I was just talking about.
Yeah.
And I said, man, I could use some guidance on the production of this. He goes, well, Simeo wrote for Cameo, had a band called Cash Flow. Has the Key to the City in Flint for both those things. He's had the lead singer from the Dramatics, L.J. Reynolds, in that booth. He's had Lenny Williams from Tower of Power in that booth. And I'm getting intimidated as he goes down the list. And then he says, but then I felt a little bit better because he says, and I've had MC Hammer in this booth. And I said, well, I can't do the dance, but I could probably find the pants. He laughed so hard. And so the way Simeo handled that whole vocal session, he was basically, it's so old school and funny. He's like, make me feel it. So I'd sing a line. He goes, I still think you're thinking too much about it. Come on now, Greg. Think about that beautiful woman of yours. So I sing it again. He goes, pardon me. He says, I think I just heard some panties dropping. So he says, like his little talkback mic,
Oh, there you go.
I say, well, what color were they? Simeo, help me with the next line. So
that song kind of reminded me of Dobie Gray a little bit.
I take that as a compliment too, where it's a kind of a crossover-y kind of soul country-ish, not quite country, but
it was a cool song.
I wrote that with Jeff quite a while ago. It's one we're going to keep revisiting. He presented it. Jeff Paris also was working with Taj Mahal's band, the Phantom Blues Band, back when Mike, he passed away, the organ player. Oh my gosh, I know you guys know this guy. He was, Mike Finnegan.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Finnegan. Okay, rock and roll guys, this is your trivia. I want to see if we got this one.
I don't know.
Mike Finnegan
I
played
heard of him, but
played on a famous iconic rock guitar player's album, a couple tracks.
I know he's on some Stephen Still stuff.
By the name of Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, Mike Finnegan's on, I think it's Rainy Day or one of those that has a little bit of a keyboard thing in the background. One of those tunes. And but he also, they had a band, he had a thing called, I think it was called the Wood, no, it wasn't the Wood Brothers. I have to think about this one. He was on an album, CBS in the 70s. But Mike Finnegan also played with Bonnie Raitt. But at this time, that more recently, before he passed, he was with the Phantom Blues Band, Taj Mahal's band. And I guess Jeff had presented the song to them, but just didn't get on the record. Oh. So I got another reject, even though I co-wrote it. Because I was actually hoping they would do it, because then it'd be like, it'd be pretty...
yeah.
I mean, Taj Mahal's band, are you kidding me?
Right.
Well, I was kind of surprised that you covered something.
I was surprised too.
Now, who did you do the duet with? Was that E.G. Knight?
No, that's Thornetta Davis.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So the story behind that is, before the pandemic, we got asked to do an homage to the Beatles. It was like a hurricane, one of the hurricane relief things. Doing it in Ann Arbor, some place over on Plymouth Road. There's a hotel over there that used to have a place that have blues bands play sometimes. But anyhow, Thornetta and I sang. What's it called?
Holiday Inn.
Yeah, that, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Thornetta and I did that, and evidently we made people in the audience cry. I already told the earlier joke. Was it that bad? Mm-hmm. But and that she never forgot it. So every time that she would see me, she said, "Man, Greg, we got to record that." And I kept saying, "You mean on your next record, right?" Like, you spend the money. Because I don't want to spend the money. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad we did it, but I was always busting her chops about it. Like, are you saying you want to record it, or you want me to record it? I don't care. One of us has to. Well, I was in the studio, And then I started tracking it without checking back in with her. I shouldn't be telling this story. And tasting my words here. She wasn't really quick getting back to me after I already tracked everything. And I went, oh, geez. So she finally just goes, no, I'd love to. And she came in and we did it, and it was great. And Motorcity Josh is playing the solo on that one.
Okay.
Because I've been teaching that guitar solo to my students for years. And because the original is softer, it's a little bit softer vocally and otherwise, I kept playing the George Harrison feel. There's a feel to it. It's a lilt, that kind of thing. And it just didn't fit the little more aggressive thing that we had going. And so Josh said, do you care if I play some slide and take a stab at it? I'm like, no, not at all, actually, because I can't get out of my own way. So that's him playing slide guitar on it. But yeah, I feel like we had a permission slip to do it in my own head, because George Harrison went on record as saying that when he wrote it, he was trying to figure out how to present it. He always heard Ray Charles singing it.
Oh, okay.
In other words, a quasi soul song, like just a little more. And so that's why we did it.
You have a lot of covers on the new record, I noticed.
Yeah,
I thought that Crazy really worked pretty well. Your voice nailed that.
People are loving that song. Larry's son said, "Oh my God, kids my age would."
I couldn't believe how well that worked out.
Willie Nelson song? Crazy?
No, that would be crazier. Okay,
Yeah.
I did it because that crazy. That's a great song. Oh yeah, Willie did write that originally, didn't he?
Patsy Cline.
No, this not the Patsy Cline. It's the Gnarls Barkley,
Yeah.
CeeLo Green.
Yeah, CeeLo.
It was a pop song.
Yeah.
But when I always heard it, I kept hearing like an Al Green kind of groove underneath it.
You nailed it. It was. I thought that was pretty fun.
And dig in a little more. I mean, like, come on, I'm doubting my own sanity. Why am I singing this like it's bubblegum pop? No way. Right. No offense if you're listening, Gnarls Barkley or CeeLo Green.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed the joke too came across pretty interesting.
So my sister,
Brandy Carlisle.
My sister, who's has some very, very serious health issues, younger than I am, and very serious health issues. It was during the pandemic that she was watching one of my streams, and she said, "Cover the joke." I'm like, "Oh, come on, Brandy Carlisle is incredible." You know if you guys are familiar with her. She's got her. She's a very stylized singer. She has almost like a female yodely type of thing she does. But the song itself, to me, the melody and the lyrics, that's what I do. Is I shift to that. I go, well, obviously, I'm not going to be able to approach it like she did it. So then I go, okay, well, what's the message? And to me, there was a line in there in particular that I thought she glossed over. And if you're listening, Brandy, I'm sorry. But when she's singing, it's the second verse when she sings about, say, they call you weak and displace you.
Mm-hmm.
After carrying, so what she does is she's like, call you weak and displace you after carrying your baby on your back across the desert. She sings with that phrasing. Now think about what I just said, and think about phrasing, right? So I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's a reveal here that needs a dramatic, not cheesy dramatic, but a dramatic pause, right? And it was, they call you weak and displace you after carrying your baby on your back across the desert. I mean, it's like you just keep adding the extra little. Whereas when she sang it straight through. It's a beautiful line, but I felt like when there was a reason on the Grammys that they had the lyrics up. That might have been one of the reasons to increase the import, the power of the message, because she's kind of sliding through it. And there's a fine line between overselling a line where it sounds melodramatic. If you phrase too dramatically, like you're William Shatner covering Rocket Man. But which, by the way, will be my next record.
So why did you choose so many covers for the record instead of going for the writing?
I feel like good question, because I do consider myself a writer primarily, not a song interpreter. But I think part of it is I've been noticing that how do I say this? I have a modest following. The way music is shared now, and I'm not going to say this was a contrivance, but it was like the power in song interpreting is you've opened up your front door a little bit for somebody to come through. You know, they're like the film. It worked for Joe Cocker. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like saying, "Oh, I know that song. I wonder how he does it." And then I like him. Let's go check out his other stuff. I think that's one that's a welcome mat.
Got you.
On one level.
Yeah.
But I also feel like song interpreting can be as important as anything else. If you are reverent and you want to honor a song and you feel that you can do something with it that will give it a new life. You know, rather than just trying to do it note for note or trying to do it. You know, and I'm tasting my words because there are people who are great note for note people too, you know, by the way. Mm-hmm. But as far as recording something, I feel like if you can breathe new life, or at least your own life and your own feelings into it, you might speak to a new audience that maybe the original didn't.
Sure.
Well, Bob Seger, Come to Papa.
OPs, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well,
OPs.
I mean, that's a song. It's a great song, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it sort of got lost in Seger's,
and great and did you know
of songs, you know.
And did you know
nice
it's not
bring it
actually?
back.
Did you know he didn't write it?
Oh, really?
Yeah, this guy. Yeah, he did not write that. That was Willie Mitchell and somebody else.
Oh,
Fred
wow.
probably knows.
You know, I've got that album too.
You know, there was originally "Come to Mama" with I am blanking. "Come to Mama" with. And then Etta did it. It was before Etta, "Come to Mama." And the groove that Etta does, because I've been playing with Bobby Murray, he said, well, let's call it "Come to Papa" again. So I conflated lyrics from, because Seeger didn't do all the original lyrics, either obviously calling it "Come to Papa," but he changed a few things. Etta's lyrics get really blue. Like she's got a line in there about "Call me anytime, 555-6969. I don't do that one. But so I kind of conflated the two, a little bit of his and her approach, but with the Etta James groove more so, but not quite exact. And the reason that all came about was Bobby had me, it was a few years ago when I started doing those Magic Bag shows with Bobby Murray. That was one of the songs he threw at me, or presented to me, I should say.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, oh, I practiced it enough. I might as well try tracking it. Well, it turned out Seeger's horn player was in there, Keith Kaminsky. And he was listening to Josh. Josh goes, check this out. And he's playing and Keith goes, I want to play on it. He goes, and I'm going to share it with Bob. And then I had a brief moment of panic because I know the Seeger organization is very protective about their stuff. Yeah. So I already knew he didn't write it, but for just a split second, I'm like, what can Punch do to me? I was kind of getting nervous. Yeah. And no, he goes, no, they're going to love it. They're going to love it. And they kind of know who I am because of the Sean Murphy thing. So, but I've heard
who did the backing vocals, the female backing vocals?
Yeah. She's Lynn Calloway out of Flint. She's a gospel singer. She's got some records out under her own name.
Yeah.
She was, I did those at Semio's studio too, and they know each other. So he was feeding her lines, and she was not only responding to his lines but anticipating what should be there. Yeah, she's very intuitive. She's also on The Real You, and I don't think she's on anything else. Yeah.
Now you kind of went back to the traditional blues sound on Mississippi blues. The slide guitar is pretty prominent there. Who did the slide? Did you slide?
Nope. I played. If you got earbuds in and you got them in the right ear holes, if the right's over here, the left's over here. The right one is me on a Martin, and the left is a dobro. And the dobro is Ray Goodman.
Oh, Ray.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yep, it's Ray Goodman. And that's Peter Mad Cat Ruth on harmonica.
Oh, well,
nice.
You got kind of an all-star.
I know he knows.
Oh, yeah, I know Matt.
Yeah.
We're trying to get him up here.
Yeah, trying to get him on the show too.
All right, I'll tell him to get his butt up here.
I'd like to get Ray on the show. I used to see Ray when he played with Wagner a lot.
Yeah, I'll mention it to Ray too. Yeah, those guys are great. We tracked those acoustics in my basement live, and then I sent the track down to Mad Cat, and he tracked his harmonica in his basement. It's a basement song, and it all took one day. And I said, that was the easiest and most enjoyable song to do on the entire record, and the cheapest song to do on the entire record. So someday I'm gonna do a whole record of just that acoustic. And
well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I forgot about Bobby Murray. He would be a great guest. I mean, his history.
Well, Bobby's got stories like sitting. I won't tell any of them. I'll tell part of one, so just to prime the pump. Just if you get him in here, ask him about being in the back of a limo in Europe with Etta James and Miles Davis pops in.
Whoa!
And Miles says to Etta, I wish I could do a Miles Davis impersonation because it would be so awesome if I could. You guys know how he talks, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. But Miles says to Etta, do you know who Albert Collins is? And Etta says, of course I know who Albert Collins is. And then she said, Bobby played with Albert Collins. And he goes, that man is bad. I love Albert. He loved Albert Collins and Muddy Waters. He could not stop talking about those two people. He's on record. Miles is on record as saying that when he was doing Kind of Blue, he was trying to make a Muddy Waters record.
Yeah.
He wanted that vibe, whatever those vibes were. That's what he was so in search of. Even though he was thinking more in jazz terms and whatnot, he still wanted to have that realness.
You probably know that Bobby was in a high school band with Robert Cray.
Yeah. We opened for Robert. I was with Bobby. We opened for Robert at the Motor City Casino a couple years ago.
I remember that.
And I got to meet Richard Cousins, his bass player with.
Oh yeah.
He's back with them, huh?
Yep.
Because I met Robert Cray early when he first came out down in New Orleans, and Richard Cousins was with him, but he had to get rid of him because of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
Things happen with musicians. Not me. I'm boring. But yes.
Tell us your Albert King story. You were hitting that Albert King thing earlier. You said you want to talk about.
Well, two things. Now that I got this little cyst removed off the side of my face and I have these stitches, I'm going to have me an Albert King scar. So that's going to be awesome. I mean, his was from a knife, whatever. I mean, mine's from a cyst. But anyhow, I blame myself mostly because again, younger. I was younger, had brown hair then. Total fanboy. It was Albert King, and it was at Sully's in Dearborn. And on rhythm guitar, by the way, I'll get to him too, was Eric Gale's brother. I can't think of his name right now. Went by Little Jimmy King or something like that.
Little Jimmy King.
Like that,
Little Jimmy King. So, a couple parts of that story. One is me and my dearest friend, John Selly, who turned me onto the blues in 1981, were sitting right next to the stage, right next to Albert's monitor. I mean, his monitor was right here, and there was Albert getting ready to play. And John just said, and John was joking. And John was a big guy himself, 6'6", 300-pound guy. But John just says, hey, he's looking at how imposing Albert is, looking up like that. And he says, hey, man, I dare you to unplug his monitor. I'm like, ha, it's funny. And then Albert goes up to Mike and says, test. I can't hear myself. And John's looking at me like, no, you didn't. I'm like, I didn't touch anything, pal. So that was the first part of that story. The second part is I'm talking to him on the break, and he just, I don't think he wanted to talk to me. It was like, I was trying to I'm your biggest fan. Oh, whatever. and then Jimmy King, he was pretty friendly, but he had a really thick Memphis accent, so I couldn't understand what he was saying. Mm-hmm. I mean, after I lived in the South, I got better at discerning thick Southern accents, but it was pretty thick. And I kept asking where he was from, and I kept thinking he was saying Medford, like Detroit. He was saying Memphis. I'm like, oh, you're from around here? And you get mad. No, I'm from Medford. So that conversation didn't go well. I put those in my top three would be Albert, Little Jimmy, and probably Gatemouth Brown at the Long Beach Blues Festival in California. I got a photo somewhere. I wish I still had it, where you could tell he couldn't have that photo be over quick enough. I'm a big fan. I still love him. But I was just like, man, was it me, or were they just tired of all of us by then?
I took a picture of him and Lazy Lester down in Florida, and he said he made Lester put his beer down. He said, no one takes a picture that I'm in with holding on to a beer. And he's smoking on his pipe.
Yeah, which wasn't tobacco. Yeah,
Right. And it was just funny. I mean, we all knew what he had in his pipe.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Larry told you his Albert King story with the chicken, right? I'll ask him. I'm gonna save that for Larry to tell you. Just remember, say,
Okay.
tell me what coming to the Albert session with the chicken bucket.
I know he says Albert was always busting his chops.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he took Larry under his wing for a minute, didn't he?
Yeah, they were doing some stuff. That's Larry's hero, so it's a great story.
Right.
He had it on our podcast too, but he told me that years ago, and to this day it cracks me up. It's just so funny. So
Albert's just one of those guys that, because his output is so well, that was my first exposure to the blues was Albert King's "Drowning on Dry Land." I was 19 years old, and it was the first time in my life that I felt actual hairs rising on my arms and goosebumps. And don't get me wrong, I felt exhilaration from songs. Like, I mean, man, rock songs, I mean, they'd get me going. But I felt something else. Like, and it was
the electricity, the reality of it.
And so I remember playing it, and almost immediately afterwards, all of a sudden I'm like trying to proselytize or whatever. So I go to my other musician friends, and one of them was a folk guy, and I'm like, but he was like, you know how some folk guys, or not even folk, some country or even like church singers sometimes, like when they go to do I'll speak in musical terms for a second. When they go to bend from a flat third, minor third to a major third, blues guy likes to do the blue notes in between, like the micro bends. You know, that'll drive somebody nuts who's never heard it, because they think you're supposed to be going up to the major third. You're resolving up to the major third. So I said, I'm going to mess with my friend Dan, because I know he was a church choir at a Catholic church, just to see how he felt about all these little vocal and guitar micro bends. He loved it. How do you do that? How's he getting away with that? I'm like, just listen. He goes, this is amazing. You know, he had a little Walkman. He like whips the headphones off. He's just like, his eyes are like this big. I'm like, I know, right? So yeah, it was Albert King. So I mean, if I could probably hold back being a fanboy with most people, you know, just to be aware that I might be making them uncomfortable because I'm overly excited. You know, like my teenage girl at Ed Sullivan Beatles.
Right.
Or boy, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, but come on, man, that was the guy.
For me,
That
it's
was
the
the
same,
guy for
same
me.
thing. Like I was a love Muddy. Muddy was it.
Yeah, Muddy.
He felt like a grandpa in my ears every time he came on. Like I was learning something, hearing something. He played with everybody. But the first time somebody tossed me an Albert King record, I believe it was the Wednesday night in San Francisco or something.
Yeah.
And you hear him stomping on the floor and his reverb unit's shaking in the background.
It's so real.
It makes you think you're smelling the dust in the air there.
Yeah, it's so
like,
real.
And he's like, hey! And he off mic, "Row!" And
It's
you're
so
like,
real.
oh my Lord. I'm like, I to this day, I play that probably once a month, you know, that record. It's like, whew, you know, and then Larry, when we get in this, you know, we'll jam or we're cutting vocal parts, and he tries to pull out the Albert Yelps, you know, and I love that. It's just like, oh.
Larry played something off of the Muddy record, and I'll probably have to message you later when I remember the title, because it wasn't early Muddy. It would have been like early 70s, so it was somewhere in between that, you know, urban.
Before Johnny Winter.
Somewhere in there
Yeah.
where it was still kind of funky.
Yeah.
It was not
When the
funky.
Stones joined him.
Somewhere in there,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the tune, but I wore that out, man. I mean, it's funny. Why can't you remember the name of the tune, Greg? Well, because I'm 61. That's why. But it'll come to me. But yeah, Muddy Waters was one, and then I didn't at first with the Robert Johnson. I wasn't sure, and then once I committed to it, I was like, oh, this is eerie. The one that would haunted me was Skip James. Skip James just it haunted me. It just that's the only way I could word it. It was beautiful, but it was just so hauntingly beautiful. I'm like, okay, there's just nobody else would. I can't imagine anybody else sounding exactly like this, and there's a whole lot of humanity coming out of this person's voice and playing. And
That's the stuff that makes you double think of why you do the blues, doesn't it?
But early on, it was like I was wondering, and that's why some people go, "Oh, he's not that traditional, or he's not that." I'm like, no, I'm trying to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm trying to play what I'm feeling and then do it in a way that can connect with people.
I notice your music cuts through too. It's not just blues. You do like a R&B-ish pop.
Yeah.
You'll take a pop tune and you might blues it out vocally,
Bring it back a little bit.
But you're just playing with it. You're letting it work. You're letting the song work rather than force it to be a blues song or force it to be a pop song. You're doing it your style.
Yeah, a friend of mine, his name's Earl Thomas. He's out of California. He's got Grammy credit for writing for Etta James, and Tom Jones did one of his tunes, and the list is long. But Earl in the '90s was really slated. He was on Frank Zappa had a record label then, and he was slated to be on to be just next big thing. But he was on one of those big jazz festivals over there, Montreux, on stage with everybody, B.B. King. He basically was in a dressing room with just these icons, anyhow, he's been a supporter of mine for a long time, and the thing that he said is, there's no shortage of people who can mimic really well. And his compliment to me was that you're just really believable, and I said, well, I can't mimic. So if I can't mimic, I gotta go somewhere else.
Well, that's a pretty good compliment.
Yeah.
What are you going to do as far as promoting the record? Are you going to line up a number of gigs and?
Yeah, probably morphing into next year. I'm starting to look ahead a little bit and then start to consider some of the previous things that I did with my other records. Nothing in the works just yet. I have a national publicist who's going to start pushing the record November 1st. I don't know if you know Albert Castilla, but his wife does publicity for a whole bunch of people, and she's really good, and radio. So she's pushing about 500-600 stations and some reviewers and stuff, and it's already leaking out. I'm seeing it getting airplay in Europe and Australia, and it's not out yet. I was looking at your
YouTube today.
Have you officially released it?
I officially released it on Spotify and YouTube and all that stuff, and but the timing fell off. It was supposed to get the radio push and everything around the time it hit, and then because I mentioned earlier that the print on the sleeves got messed up. Right. So I'm like, obviously I can't send this out without the credits being visible. Yeah. But so that will start November 1st, and it's available at all fine record stores in your community.
Another.
I know Fred would laugh at that or cry. He's gonna laugh or cry.
Is it coming on vinyl?
I'm thinking about it. It is not cheap to do vinyl.
No.
And I said, I just made a post on Facebook. I said, if I get a modest amount of interest, I'm talking a dozen people, I could probably do a short run and maybe lose a little money on it, but at least
sell the shows.
At least have it on hand in case somebody asks. One cool thing about Motorcity Josh is he's really connected with all these blues things around the state, and then I've also have the people in California and some people in Florida and stuff who are talking to me about doing some stuff, and mostly I was just kind of holding out to see how things were going with Larry, but it's been kind of slow, as you know, and he does the Devin Allman thing a lot too.
So you gotta see where Devin's at. That way you know where your layout is.
So as long as I can work that out, but Larry and I are good friends too. So he if it comes down to it that I need to chase after this full time, so be it.
Well, you got to do your thing for a little while too.
But I love that guy. As a human being and as a musical entity, and I don't begrudge him anything. If he's not crazy about hitting it as hard as he used to, and he has every right to pick and choose his.
The age and the body will do a lot too.
It's not easy. He's just a couple of years older than me, but I'll tell you, man, that trip we did to Romania a couple years ago, 36 hours awake before we could sleep. And they don't mess around in airports anymore. They don't let you sleep, and you can crash in an airport so that took me like almost a month to recover after that run. Yeah. So it's kind of a young man's game, that kind of traveling. But if he can get himself to a point where he's just doing fly-ins and fly-outs,
Yeah.
You know, that'd be awesome for him.
Yeah, you'll be able to open up your door a little bit to do your thing too. I got to track back to one more crazy question from when you were gone to Virginia. You left Michigan while there was weekly bands, 5 sets a night, every day. You took off the 90s when it all started changing around and you got back here. And you didn't have a clue what was going on because you weren't here, but you were checking out that scene. What was your perspective coming home and finding there was next to no gigs or they were really drying up at the time?
That's a great question because it runs corollary, is that the word, with how did you feel about coming back to Flint and seeing it even worse condition than when you left?
Yeah.
See, I mean, the general, everything around it, not just the music, but just...
Because art changed so much
you
in
were
that
the
time
house
you were
band
gone.
somewhere, weren't you, in Flint at that time? Because I remember when Steve Nardella came. You were the backup band.
I was doing a thing on Sundays. Yeah, in Flint on Sundays that was about 10 years ago, though. Maybe 12 years ago. I was doing that, and I got George Bedard to come up, and Steve Nardella, and Lathel Sadi, and I got a couple of touring acts to stop by, and people that I knew. And it was pretty happening for a sports bar in a strip mall. It was kind of fun, but it was a lot of work. But it wasn't like I stepped into an existing scene. I had to make a scene, you know, just like
we do now.
And that took a lot of energy and a lot of. It can be distracting I know it is show business, you know, or music business. You know, you got to obviously have the music, and you want that to be the primary focus. But you also have to figure out some elements of the business so that you can share the music. And sometimes it's hard to balance it properly. I mean, one thing about roots musicians that's interesting to me is they'll get a $10,000 or $15,000 budget if it's going well to do a record, and then that's all the money. The thing that's interesting to me about, you know, rock and pop and stuff is the recording is 10% of the budget. The rest is the brand building and the tour supports and the TV show. You know, like
social media.
It's almost like it's more than invert upside down for roots musicians, but it's not there, you know.
Indie is a whole other indie nowadays.
Yeah. You know? And so what I'm looking at, I saw something really interesting. If I were younger, type of thing. This guy did a short clip, video where he's saying that if he were younger, he said, I would do 40-second music videos of me doing some sort of pop cover or a cover that people know, either contemporary or chestnut tune of some sort, you know, that from any decade, but some song that people would recognize the title for. But you have your own version of it, and you do 40-second teaser, and then you have a little thing, because it's short attention span.
Oh, man.
Learn more. So they learn more, they click learn more, they go to the thing, and it's like you can see the whole video, but you just all you have to do is subscribe. So you subscribe, and they say once you get 100,000 subscribers, then you release your original material. Now, granted, if only 10% feel like they should give you some money, you're an independent. You're still making 6 digits. This guy explained it. He just broke it all down. You know, like if you can bypass all those other expenses of the music industry, of brand building and all that, and you're doing your own by bringing people in through the familiarity factor. I just thought, wow, I wish I were younger because I would try it, but I don't know how interesting the masses would be seeing me do a Lady Gaga tune. Well,
you know how it goes. So my son he's all over me on that. He's a YouTuber. He makes his own little stations.
So he knows.
And he's like, Dad, it's the TikTok, 20 to 40 seconds clips. And then you put them in the YouTube feed.
Yeah.
So you get the shorts.
Yeah.
And the other day he threw his phone on the couch and he goes, they're making them 3-minute shorts now. That's just going to screw it all up. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you wouldn't even know, Dad. I'm like, but I know where you're heading with it.
Yeah.
You know, everything's so, it's got to grab you.
Yeah.
And it's got to grab you now. And that's the world. I mean, everybody's skimming through Facebook now, is all the short feeds, you know. So,
well, the other trend, you know, in the top 40 stuff, if you will, is song length is getting shorter and shorter again. Now there is a history to it. We were talking about the AM hits. There was clearly a history when a 2-minute and 40-second song was quite fine. And I think the idea, I believe, and I know I realize who I'm sitting with here, so I'm tasting. I don't want to sound like I know too much because I don't. But the idea was that you give them just enough to want to run down to the record store and get the record so they can hear it again. That was my feeling, especially the way the songs with the fades or with the way the songs were set up themselves. Classic idea of that would be McCartney's song "For No One." Anybody remember that one?
Sure. Sound Revolver.
The way that ends, it makes you want to play it again. Any song that makes you want to immediately revisit it is going to send somebody to the music store, I believe was the theory. And then later, the song length obviously got longer, right, guys? But so here I am making a record. I have 2 songs on there over 5 minutes long. And people are like, "What are you, nuts?" I'm like, "I'm just making this for me." It's just, I'm just doing this for me. I know that I'm not supposed to be making 5. The joke is over 5 minutes long. The real use over 5 minutes long.
Well, those in the days of AM radio, you had to keep the songs short.
Yeah.
They wouldn't play them because they want to get commercials in.
I forgot about that.
That's a real big part of the short songs that were so popular in the the early days of rock and roll, 50s and 60s.
Lazy Lester songs were all 2 and 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I loved it as being in the band because you're in and out so quickly, and you watch the dance floor.
Yeah.
And, if you dance more than 3 minutes, then...
No, I get what you're saying. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Who was the guy, Freddie, on the festival that was popping through doing one song after another? Remember, he was just up there. You told us a story a little bit ago, a blues fest, where a guy went up there, he was all upset, and he ended up just doing like a minute of a song, then they go right into another minute of a tune. I can't remember. It was a great story you told us.
Not Shaky Jake.
It might have been. I don't know, something you booked, though.
Because his songs I told him before he went on, I said,
that's it. Yep.
Jake, your songs got to last a little longer.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Was he a busker?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See,
he couldn't play, but I got him on the Ann Arbor Blues Fest.
Oh, that's cool.
In '73, because I was co-producer, put on that Saturday afternoon show. And John Sinclair loved the idea, so we got Jake up. And that's when he moved to Ann Arbor.
Yeah,
that same day.
I don't mean, and I hope that didn't come across as a derogatory term when I said a busker. I just mean, I just mean the utility of that approach. If you're on the street, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like you're throwing different bait in the water as people come by. Like, Yep. All they got to do is hear a minute of this. They're walking by right now. Okay, next one. Yeah.
Yep. That's the whole short.
I'm guessing. No. I'm not there yet. I might start busking.
So you think you're going to be maybe on the road yourself, possibly in the next year in 2025, if Larry's doing something different?
Yeah, I'm knocking it around.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You got another record in you?
Yeah, I've already. Okay, so here's a funny one. You guys can laugh. You can laugh at me if you want, but I blame Larry for this one. His previous management, not the one that you know, but the previous one that I know, that from, on this Bonamassa record that he had for a minute.
I know him too.
You've heard the stories. Well, they were all like gung-ho and crazy about the idea of him doing some Grateful Dead. Mm-hmm. So I know you guys know him, so I almost don't have to complete the sentences. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it. He wasn't that familiar with Grateful Dead and that crazy about it, and not to mention that one experience he had with Phil Lesh that he wasn't that crazy about.
Right.
And I don't know anything about the Grateful Dead.
Oh.
But we started doing Sugaree, and I thought it was like I'm speaking out of school. I thought it was our weakest song of the set because we all were like going, I don't know if Larry's feeling this and blah, blah, blah. Audiences would go nuts, man, doing Sugaree by the Grateful Dead.
I actually told him when Joe was in town that because he was telling Joe how much of a joke the Lesh thing was to him because he couldn't rehearse those shows. Yeah. And I went with him to New York for those shows.
Oh, my gosh.
And I helped they sent me the set list through Paul to put those together for him.
I didn't know that.
And I was just into the Dead at that point. So it was, to me, it was a world I was in at the time. But we were doing Sugaree, and we were going. I says, "Dude, you pop one in your set, and you got your little jam band crowd coming back in." And then with Joe being in and out of that jam band thing, he goes, "That's a good point, Scotty." And I didn't know what. I knew he chose that down the road. I forgot about it, but I was doing Althea when Joe was there, and or Bertha, and Larry goes, "See, Joe, it just can't be one chord to the next. It's got to go." He's like, "Throw that shit away."
I know. Well, so you can appreciate this even more than I realized. So I get asked to play with this Grateful Dead type, band at this barn, kind of cool hippie-ish barn party. Mm-hmm. I do a solo acoustic set, and then they're like, "Hey, do you want to come up and sing a verse on Sugaree?" And I went, "Sugaree, really?" Because that's like the only Grateful Dead song I know. so really it was. I was like, lucky. So I said, third verse, right? Yeah, and then play a little solo. Okay. Well, and if they're listening, I'm not being mean. I'm just saying it was a little loose, fellas. That's all I'm saying. And he put it up on YouTube, and already in 4 days it has like 6,000 or some crazy amount of views. And I went, I think I'm going to go into the studio and cover Sugaree as a single this fall. Because I like the song a lot. And I kind of liked what Larry wasn't fully in, as you know, with it. He'll tell you. He would say the same thing here. It wasn't like necessarily his idea. Oh. But to me, it so borders on soul anyhow. It's not a huge stretch to interpret it more in that direction.
The way he brings the vocal,
that's what I'm saying.
It kills any version out there because his voice.
That's what I'm saying. So, and that's what my mindset is too. I'm like, if I can deliver it vocally, because everything else is just play through the changes. Will I have the arpeggiations be the same? Probably, maybe not. The song.
Oh yeah. I do it. I've been doing that song too.
Because he even could have like a bigger, older, warmer sounding B3 thing padding through it too. Or
it's got that lollop to it.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying I might cover Sugaree, and this is why.
So you're gonna do a Grateful Dead album next?
No. I only know one song.
Greg's like, "Shut up, Scott."
But this is how this happens. You get a song by. This is the best thing, is to get put out of your comfort zone, but find a song that lyrically and otherwise speaks to you, and then you're like, "Well, I'm not of that world, so I can't do that justice," But I believe I can possibly do it, and I'll try it.
Yeah.
And the Deadheads are getting old now.
Yeah, I better hurry up and get to it though, right?
Well, look at those shows with John Mayer that they're doing, the Dead Company. They're playing the Sphere more than any other band right now, other than there's another the Eagles. The Eagles and the Dead are constantly back and forth, and the Dead were retiring last year, and now they're back out doing Colorado and everything, and just every night. I mean, it's documented. Like, my feed just blows up on the.
So you're a huge Grateful Dead fan?
I used to not be a huge fan, but I am a really big fan now. Okay. And I've seen my favorite version is the Phil Lesh versions. So when that was determined that Larry, what he was going to do, that was my heart was already in it.
I liked Working Man's Dead and American Beauty.
The Ritzy records.
Those two albums. Okay. They still had Pigpen in the band.
What years was that?
That would have been maybe late 69, early 70s. Okay. I always thought when Pigpen died that the Dead kind of lost the blues.
A lot of people say that too, and that makes sense because he also brought pop.
Although I will say that of all the stuff they put out after that, which I wasn't that big a fan of, Sugaree was probably the highlight.
Yeah,
and that was from a Garcia solo.
Yeah, so that was Jerry's first record.
Yeah,
the Bird song, all that. I mean, that first Jerry solo record was a lot of.
See, now you guys are making me want to go back and dig.
Yeah. I was just listening to Jerry today because I think when Jerry went solo, like, it was bringing in those things he'd bring back to the band.
Yeah,
and then they'd start doing the solo tunes, and it was like same with Bob Weir. They do Ace songs. Playing in the band, that was Ace, and then he'd bring it back to the band, and the Dead just took off in different directions. But yeah, a lot of people love those two that you just mentioned, and that's the end of the whole. When they got out of the psychedelic,
then they had the live album in '72, which again had that band, all those guys. Pigpen was still there. This was the original Dead. That's a great live album.
Okay.
And to me, everything kind of went downhill after that. But
The Working
that's
Man's
just my
Dead
opinion.
and American in the Beauty and American those were the records where they went to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and said, "Show us how you sing harmonies."
Oh,
and
wow.
it never really worked in the Dead because they never were. They were just random.
Yeah.
But they did get tighter in them, and those two records show because of that. Because
Yeah.
those guys were in the studio at the same time. But for me, when it took off after that, like you Shakedown Street, there's Althea, like there's a slew of them going into the '80s where I'm like, wow, the late '70s for me was my Dead era, more of a disco-y thing.
I feel like Fred's holding his tongue.
Well, I was never into them.
I know. I just had that look like you're like, I don't have a horse in this race.
Yeah.
when we have a metal show on here is when he's like, "Did you bring me to this?"
So how long have you been into Ozzy, Fred?
My friend who he went to see them at Pine Knob.
Yeah.
And he came back and he said, I'll never go see him. He said they did 2 songs.
The Dead.
Yeah. That lasted forever. And he said it just got so boring. And it's because of that.
So that's why that one video short is viral. It's supposed to be a video of either it's actually the Grateful Dead or it might be where one band member's looking. Have you seen it? Where he's trying to get the other band members to quit the song and they won't pay attention to him. It's pretty fun.
There's something Bob's doing there. Or something.
It's pretty funny.
I just saw that recently.
I think there should be a punk rock band that does the Grateful Dead songs in a minute and a half.
Really fast.
fast.
Cool idea. Well, there is
they're
Steely
good.
Dead, who's touring right now. I told Kevin to bring in a Brooklyn Boys. They do Steely Dan and the Grateful Dead, and they do it and blend the styles. So it's like a jam Steely Dan band, and they'll go from Peg and Josie right into.
I am so grateful you just told me that because a friend of mine, Duffy King, he travels with John Lodge's Moody Blues.
Yeah,
Duffy does. And so Duffy's wife loves the Grateful Dead, and Duffy does not like the Grateful Dead. In fact, that's an understatement. He would.
Yeah.
He hates the Grateful Dead.
Despise.
She loves the Grateful Dead. But he also does a one-man band looper show of Steely Dan tunes. So I hit him on the phone the other day, and I wasn't doing the Grateful Dead impersonation, but now that you've given me this information, guess what I'm sending him?
Steely Dead.
I'm Steely Dead. I'm going to totally send it to him when I get in the car.
They just announced their big tour for the coming.
Oh
year.
my God,
Yeah.
I'm going to take him to the show.
I like your idea, Gary.
I do too.
Yeah.
That's I've never even thought of that one.
I was thinking a polka version of it. but-
Well, perfect for Bay City
That's
here.
even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
That
there
would
you
be
go.
big in the south end of Bay City.
The longest polka tune you ever heard.
I was doing.
Dark Star in a polka beat.
I was taking all the super slick Steely Dan chords and I was turning them into first position cowboy chords. So I was like CCG. CCG, I see your picture, G. CCG. And he's getting mad at me. I'm doing it over the phone. F. And he's getting mad at me. I was like, I think I'm funny.
He's like, shut up.
I fixed it. You had all those wrong chords in the Steely Dan version. No, music is whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
when
yeah,
you go to
each
do
his
your
own.
Dead record, you got to call Brother Scott.
Brother
When
Scott.
you get down there.
You're gonna be like, you're doing it all wrong.
No, dude, I just want to have fun with you. Let's get Larry to sing the whole thing. You know?
doing it all wrong.
We'll have fun. Just, we'll noodle all day.
Yeah, he'll hate every minute of that. Which
Well, can we rehearse?
two of
please?
us would have fun.
Yeah.
He'd be like, as long as we can rehearse.
Yeah. Nah.
Larry should do a Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
You heard that
Oh,
version of
Honky
Midnight
Tonk.
Rambler.
Midnight
he did
Rambler on the
that.
Honky
Yeah,
Tonk
he did
Tones
one
label.
on-
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
man,
Some tribute
I
album.
was smoking. I'll tell you.
See, that's what I'm getting at. That the song interpretation. It's kind of like you can really do something kind of exciting with something that's familiar to people. It can go both ways though. It can backfire. People can get
Right.
mad at you. Oh, you're doing it all wrong. You know. But that's just a
yeah.
chance you take. But
Yep.
That's why I thought I don't think anyone could sing a Roy Orbison song and give it justice.
it would be hard.
Except Linda Ronstadt did it.
Did she?
Blew Bayou, but
Oh,
she,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you meant she did a record. I'm like, what? I didn't even know she did a whole Rorbs.
No, just that
Yeah.
Blue Bayou, but
I told Larry I would love to hear him do a Peter Green with the reverb units, Chicago style. Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac version, because that Rattlesnake Shake, and he did Black Magic Woman.
Yeah, Rattlesnake
but when
Shake.
you get into that whole the echoey, reverby, just let him get in the room and let him feel his Albert King while he's doing it.
Yeah.
I think that shit would be off the charts.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's where my head's at.
Yeah.
With him.
Yep. Well, it's one of these. A lot of these. How do I say it? I'll talk to Larry. You probably do the same thing. I'll give him unsolicited advice, but then I hear myself talking. I'm going, why don't I follow my own advice sometimes?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Well,
if I had that voice though, that he's
Yeah.
got I'm sure you think like that sometimes too. Like,
yeah.
Larry's got the voice, man.
Well, I mean, Larry's here. Okay, so let me go back full to Jeff Paris. Okay, and like what I said about Earl Thomas talking about voices. There's no shortage of technically great singers, right? So the idea is that if nothing else, in a positive fashion, can you stand out in a crowd? In other words, would you stand out in a lineup? Somebody go, oh, that's Greg Nagy singing. Oh, that's Larry McCray singing. Oh, that's Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, I'm being silly to make a point.
Yeah.
And so this is a couple of years ago. Jeff and I were talking on the phone, and he just said, do you know Larry McCray? I'm like, well, this was a few years ago. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. We're both from Michigan. He goes, yeah, I knew he's from Michigan. I just wondered if you knew him. And then here's the interesting thing about the Michigan-based following. With Larry over years, there was great guitar player, clearly, goes without saying, but the emphasis always seemed to be on his guitar playing. But when you go to the West Coast and talk to people, man, you're talking about some GIT graduates, and technically, I'm not saying there's no better after a certain level of proficiency. There's just aesthetic preference. But what I'm getting at is they would all talk about his voice first and foremost, because it was like, well, it stands out in a lineup, and that was a compliment that I got, is that your voice sounds genuine and unique. And in this day and age, with these TikTok videos and stuff of these 14-year-olds shredding, incredible stuff. That Matteo Mancuso, have you seen that kid?
Yeah.
You guys seen him yet?
He plays all four fingers like he's.
When he's got Al Di
flamenco,
Meola
but he
and Steve
plays
Vai
like-
quaking in their boots, technically.
It's John McLaughlin just freaking out.
Yeah. He was playing John McLaughlin when he was 14.
Yeah.
So there's a point where if that's what you're chasing, good luck. It's like juggling chainsaws. Some guys can do it really well, and I'll continue with the analogy of juggling chainsaws. I don't mind watching it for a minute, but I'm not going to buy an album.
Right.
So it depends what you like, and what you appreciate. It's entertaining and cool and impressive to have a lot of virtuosity vocally or on the instrument. But for me, it's always been more like I said, the first exposure to Albert is like, what can I do just to create an emotional response or feel an emotional response? I used to get depressed watching like George Benson play straight ahead jazz. I'm like, he's so fluid.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't even look like we're playing the same instrument, But then I'm like, it's a unique instrument. You can play it, you can approach it a million different ways,
I get like that with Roy Clark too.
Oh yeah.
Roy Clark and George Benson seem to take them hollow bodies like it's a joke, like it's just an extension of them, and they're talking, and they're not. But in my mind, it's like they don't even
Campbell
think, or Glenn Campbell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, talk about somebody who is easy to hate. I mean, rest in peace. Sings beautifully, has beautiful songs, situations, and then somebody will say, "Yeah, why don't you just go let it rip, Glenn, on guitar?" There was a country music special on YouTube or something where all the greats are sitting around there, and he takes a solo, and they're all going, they're all looking like, holy smokes!
I saw him at the YMCA, backed up by the Bossman.
For real?
Here in Bay City?
Saginaw.
Saginaw YMCA.
No way.
Yeah, that was kind of a famous gig.
Yeah.
Dick Wagner wrote about that
Right.
he wasn't particularly happy with the Bossman. He thought they kind of showed him up a little bit.
Was that in the book?
Okay, something like that. Yeah.
You guys knew Dick Wagner, I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Scott probably knew him.
I worked with him in the
better
studio
than-
for 3
yeah,
years.
Wow.
I was an acquaintance of Dick. I talked to him a few times, but wouldn't call him a friend really.
I called Ray Goodman during the pandemic because I wanted to do Only Women Bleed solo acoustic. Now clearly I had to cut out some elements of the big orchestra and all that, but But so I called Ray. He was in Nashville at the time, and I played over the phone what I was working on. And I said, because Ray played with Dick for 15 years or something crazy like that.
The last batch of years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said, "Am I doing it right?" And Ray says, "It sounds great, but there ain't no right." He goes, he played it different every time I was with him, because he would sometimes go down and strum just the cowboy chords, but full and lush and cool. Or sometimes he would do that line, let me do that. He goes, and I never knew which one he was gonna do. So he was always prepared to, go left or go right based on where Dick wanted to go with it. But I do that song on my solo acoustic gigs,
cool.
and Only Women Bleed, and people are just like, I've never heard anybody do that. I'm going, yeah, I'm a little nuts.
I love
because it is a bold song to just do you in an acoustic, but
Right,
but it is also one of those songs that melodically, lyrically, arranging wise, everything can lend itself to just you in an acoustic. Like Fred was saying about, sometimes a song gets so associated with a certain timbre of voice that if the song itself doesn't sing itself, you know what I mean? Then it's all of a sudden it's like, ooh, how do I interpret this one? I've so got Roy Orbison on my brain. It's the problem with the Ray Charles tunes. It's like, how are you really going to interpret? I don't mind trying to cover Georgia, but I don't think I'd try to record it. How do you and I'm not saying people shouldn't, other than Michael Bolton. That was a joke. If you're listening, Michael Bolton. But you get what I'm saying though. I don't want to be the guy to say that anything is off limits completely, because I literally had somebody say that. Or Jeff Paris said that. He said you almost have you're like a male Bonnie Raitt. That's what he said to me one time, and he said, "Why don't you do I Can't Make You Love Me?" And then I remember saying it to somebody else, and like, nobody should do that song. That's Bonnie's song. Like, people get protective, and I'm going, well, I haven't even covered it yet. You're telling me I can't do it. I haven't even tried.
It's a great idea, though.
But it was a great idea, except that I Googled it, and guess who did it? Kenny Rogers.
Oh, did he? Really?
So now I'm worried I'll sound like Kenny Rogers.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So
Must have been on an album or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, album cut.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Well, thank you, Greg, for coming to Bay
Yeah, it
City,
was
man,
awesome.
and the conversation. I mean, we could probably spend another 2 hours going, because we all know the same circles. So.
Oh no, and I feel like I've probably been too verbose.
No, dude, your new record needs to be heard.
Yeah, it's great. Really,
we tell people where you're at on the web and where they can find you. And
Greg. Yeah, see how I talk about everything but the record? I can't help it.
That's what,
you guys are so cool.
It's all friends,
I just
man.
want, plus I don't get out of the house very often. So, GregNagy.com. So GregNagy.com.
The name of the new album is
The Real You.
The Real You. Is there any videos coming out? I forgot to ask you that.
Been knocking the idea around that.
Vinyl and videos could be a thing.
The video would be again, you ask tough questions, because
damn it, Scott.
I don't know if I'm smart enough to know what a good video would look like.
well,
you know what I
even
mean?
A live performance.
A live performance would be a
great.
no-brainer. Yeah. But if like a music video per se, it's like
Yeah.
I don't want to do like the Billy Squire thing. Remember that one that ended his career?
Yeah.
I'll be crawling across the floor, scantily clad.
Although that might be witty.
Fred, you remember that one, right?
61-year-old guy doing that could be an interesting
Could
thing.
be the thing. Could be the thing. Just the fact
in a loincloth, thinking it back to your Nugent days.
Just the fact that I could
Sexy
get
senior.
just the fact that I could get off the floor would be impressive.
That's right.
Anybody can get on the floor, but getting off the floor would be the exciting part of the video.
Somebody told me the other day that MTV is no more.
Well, they don't play any music, I don't think, anymore.
Really?
It's all reality shows, at least the last I looked at it.
What was the first video? We were talking about this the other
Video
night.
killed the radio star.
Radio killed the
Right.
or video killed the radio
Video
star by
the Buggles.
Buggles, right?
And they went on to play with Yes right after that album.
Yeah.
They did one album with Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Trevor Horn produced, then he went on and did 90125.
Because at
Seal.
that time, I always thought videos never made sense to me.
Well, they were pretty
because it had
silly,
nothing
those
to
early
do with
videos.
the song.
Yeah, they don't hold up very well if you look at those early videos now.
Oh,
They're
okay.
pretty embarrassing.
Well, a lot of it for me was, when I was growing up and not going to concerts, but hearing the acts, is I had my own imagination as to what they might look like when they were performing. And 9 times out of 10, I was shocked. Like, oh, okay, I didn't quite realize. I mean, not as a negative, but it was almost like part of. It's like the difference between reading a book and watching a movie. So there was something of just about having headphones on and listening to the vinyl and not being hung up on image.
Yeah.
But rather just get lost in the music. And then once the image became part of the convincing factor, we're going to convince you with these smoke and mirrors. Like the song could still be great, but to me, in particular, if the song were great and then I saw all the other distractions, it kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
And here we are now where it's all about the image, the show. The music is secondary and sometimes pre-recorded.
Yeah, it's very stylized. I just saw a clip on Jimmy Kimmel of some new band, and I can't remember the name of them, and I shouldn't talk too much smack, but they just start in, and I'm looking at them, and all of a sudden I go, well, they have cool looking clothes, and the lighting's cool, and they're lip syncing. Now I know there's a history of lip syncing. Yeah. But this was presented as a Jimmy Kimmel Live, and I'm looking at the guitar player's hand, and I'm going,
you know.
And then you think that would be the easiest instrument, right? The vocal probably would be the toughest one to match up consistently with the phrasing. But if you did a part that you yourself recorded, your hand would be close to being in time with the part. I would think this guy was like not even in the same zip code. And I'm just going, I bet you people don't even notice.
Well, there's so much production that goes into a lot of today's music. It's really difficult to replicate it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing a one-shot deal on television when you're playing one song.
Yeah.
We had to lip sync in Norway. We did this TV show. So they played Lazy Lester, his original song. And the band's not on it.
Oh, no.
There's no washboard on it.
Oh, no.
And I'm sitting there, and we're all pretending like we're playing. And I'm the only one playing because I can't, I can't, So I'm the only one you can actually hear in the room. And after I watched it, Lazy Lester didn't lip sync it that well.
Is that readily available on YouTube right now?
Yeah, I want to see it.
We'd like to see it.
No, but I have it on.
On you haven't sold that yet? Okay. I got to see that. You've mentioned that a few times. I would love to see that. That's great.
Yeah, I just watched it again not too long ago. Pretty
Greg
funny.
Nagy from Flint, man. Thank you, dude.
You guys are the best.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Do I have to get up now?
On behalf of our hosts, this podcast wouldn't be here without generosity of the Bay City Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame. We'd also like to thank all of our guests, and especially to the listeners. The MMHP is found at 989.network, or where all podcasts can be found. You can find updated information as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Picks of the Week on Facebook. Also on Facebook, check out Mr. Mike's Local Music Live series and Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen Studios, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as Mr. BT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1.
On behalf of us hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, we'd like to thank Mr. Eddie Switek, the voice of the MMHP and the 989.